So when I first got to you over these last couple of years, I've done a lot of asking around, right? Do you know this person? What do you think of this person? What do they do? How does it work? How does the whole larger development in Phoenix playing card look like, right? And so one of the things that what quickly stood out to me about Jim Belfiore was everybody knows your name. Everybody knows your name. Everybody that knows you has incredibly positive things to say about you. You make people feel special, heard, no matter what they do, how long you've known them. Your reputation is incredibly, incredibly consistent. And
Well, yeah,
so, yeah,
yeah,
and I'm not telling you this to pump you up on a Monday by any stretch of the
yeah.
imagination. But the ultimate thing I wanted to really dive into mostly with you today, we could talk about whatever the things there are that you want to share was people know your name, I'm assuming from the research company that I would love for you to kind of tell that story a little bit. They know your name, and then if they're lucky enough, they get to know you too. But how did you build that brand? How did you establish who you are even through that acquisition and all of those things? If you could walk us down that yellow brick road.
I'm Stephanie, a mother, a pilot. I don't know. Am I trying to say the same things or just talk? Welcome to the Wisdom and Wealth Podcast, where the stories you don't hear are the ones that matter most. I'm Stephanie, a mother, pilot, and commercial real estate professional with deep roots in Arizona. I was an entrepreneur at 24 and sold my first business at 27, and I've been navigating commercial real estate ever since. We are going to be sitting down with some of the biggest names in business around the Phoenix Metropolitan area, as well as community leaders and nonprofit organizations that are continuing to improve our community. I'm very excited for the things that they chose to share when they thought nobody was listening. What I've learned in hearing their stories aren't just the struggles and how we overcome them, but really building a network around you of people that know you, trust you, want to help you, and you are trying to give just as much to them as they give to you every single day. And never connecting that relationship to a transaction. It's about the relationships, the connections, and understanding the true stories that shape success. And I hope you find inspiration in the conversations we have.
Yeah, I think the worst thing about my research company was I started at the beginning of 2006, and a lot of people don't know that the housing market was already crumbling. But nobody really recognized it. They didn't have their eye on the ball. And in the between third and fourth quarter of 2005, the resale market supply just skyrocketed. And so I started kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in early 2006. I had underwritten deals throughout the country for a land banking firm up until then, and had gotten a really big bonus. The year before was really great, and I said, it's time to strike out on my own. And I saw this, kind of need in research from working with researchers across the country. Just found the data wasn't all that great, and so I started up, and I say it was the worst time because the market was crumbling, and you just don't know what you don't know. And it was a very long road to getting to building a stable company, much longer than I anticipated. But the best part of that was it made me work a lot harder,
Mhm.
and out of necessity, out of survival, because there weren't a lot of jobs in real estate. There was a lot of shrinking in real estate at that time, and really all the way through about 2011. I had to fight to live, and so that helped me adapt. And at the end of the day, you have to support your family, right? So you
Mhm.
fight, and
Mhm.
I fought harder than ever, and was able to really um, had some great employees who helped me build that company in the early years. So I attribute a lot of our success to them. And I had the benefit of meeting some really great people that I didn't, I may have met them earlier, but really getting to know them. People like Joe Blackburn and John Graham and Carol Grumley, and really there are a lot of them, Elliot Pollock,
Mhm.
people that are icons in real estate, really icons that have left a mark on the industry, and that will be forever remembered, in my own opinion, here in Phoenix, Arizona, in the state of Arizona. I was able to spend time with them, and they gave me a lot of ideas, and it helped kind of launch our brand, which was, literally like a 5, 6 year launch. In April 2012, we were like about to shut our doors, and then the market, for market research really turned immediately and kind of catapulted us. So
Mhm.
um, I feel really blessed and honored, and thankful that I had those mentors, and I had those really great entrepreneurial employees that helped our company thrive. It's really awesome. And since then, I've come across people like you who are fantastic, and a lot of others that have become really great friends. And you know, I think everybody has something fantastic about them. And it's really, if you can find the time to get to know them, what's awesome is you can take the best parts from everybody and hopefully better yourself.
So you're hitting on something that is bubbling to the top of these conversations, and I'm going to call it the major gap. And I think I've had this conversation with you briefly in the past. I believe I have, but basically, what I've observed in these conversations are like the names that you just mentioned. Those were kind of the OG Phoenix developer, put this town on the map, right? And
Right.
you were in your 30s, maybe early 40s, trying to figure this out,
Right.
trying to walk this line. But
20s, it
ultimately,
was 20s.
20s to 18 or 19. But
Yeah,
ultimately, what you just described, that I had to fight, I had to feed my family, there's a very interesting population that I don't believe truly exists as it relates to commercial real estate. And it's that, let's call it 35 to 49-year-old that was embarking on their real estate career right when the great financial crisis hit us. We were old enough to own homes, maybe have young families, and not old enough to sit back on a savings account. And it was
right,
either you fight to just keep your eyeballs above water or you bail. And I think a
right,
lot of people bailed. And now that gap of like the information you're carrying from the OG people that you described, now Jim Belfiore has it, and you're meeting with people like me and others in the marketplace that are you're carrying these pearls of wisdom along the way that I don't even know that you realize you're carrying. And there's not a lot of you out there that are carrying them, that have them, that had access to both sides of this conversation. And so, with that in spirit, if you were to try to inspire somebody to do the same thing you're doing, you're busy, you've got enough to do, but you will take a meeting, you will
oh,
have that conversation. Like, how do you have the self-discipline and or desire to stop, pause, and make that time?
well, I appreciate you asking that. I'd say I have more free time today than I've ever had in my life, because when I ran my business, I literally worked 60 to 80 hours a week,
Mhm.
and sometimes more than that. And didn't have a lot of money, so my family, when we got away for vacations, it was like camping
Mhm.
for a very, very long time. My kids grew up camping, and now one of them hates it and one of them loves it. So
We do
uh,
our best.
yeah, but we were in touch with nature, when we could get away. So that was awesome. But I'd say, now I work a lot less. I
Mhm.
work a 40-hour week pretty much. And so it enables me to meet with a lot more people. So I'm thankful for that. But certainly I'd say, if you ever get a chance to hear John Graham speak to a group of people, and just sort of share his legacy,
Mhm.
what you'll find is, and I'll tell you, I strive to be like John Graham. He has if he was to give you a list of all the organizations that he supports that do good for our community, for our state, for the entire population, that list would be like 100 companies.
Mhm.
The guy is amongst the most busy real estate guys uh, that I've ever known, but he still makes time, and he will never ever turn down a meeting. Um, I strive for that. I really do. I don't know. Um, and I
Why?
appreciate all the I think it's important, obviously. I think at the end of the day, and we're probably seeing it more today than ever, um, not to get political, but obviously, the government is cutting back. Well, the government was never, this great organization we all yearn to go see ever in history,
There wasn't a
like
line out the
nowadays,
door.
yeah, they have a lot of them have Fridays off, and they, when I say they, I'm talking about, just governmental organizations.
Sure.
It's always a battle on cost. People don't want to pay their money to the government, so they don't, the government organizations are, have limited hours, and
Mhm.
so it's you strive to get a time with them, right? So when you think about how good things really happen, they happen from charities, they happen with
Mhm.
private do-good organizations, and it's people that are involved in that, like the John Grahams of the world, who give
Mhm.
an outsized amount of their time, money, energy, and ideas to make things better for everyone. And so, I strive to do the same, and it really is a balance thing. It's mentoring, it's working, with organizations like, ULI or Valley Partnership, things that further the industry, further young people, uh,
Mhm.
and improve upon what we do. But it's also, those charities. So, um, I want to be more like the John Grahams and the Joe Blackburns,
Mhm.
and people like that, Elliot Pollock, who have kind of been doing this their entire careers,
Yeah.
and they have the experience. So obviously they've done something right. So you want to try and follow in their footsteps.
It was interesting. Ironically, it was at a Zonda event that I've only really worked in this market in Hawaii and some Pacific Northwest. So I don't have a ton of different markets to compare what the corporate environment looks like. But
Right,
it's fascinating to notice that Arizona is sought after because of our charitable giving. And you wouldn't think that would fall on many filters, right? Like, am I going to move my corporation? What is their charitable giving as a marketplace? You don't think that is a
right.
metric of business success. And the fact that Arizona markets that, openly markets how large those charitable offerings are, was kind of a aha. And then I stopped and paused and I think about how much time I'm afforded, how much time people I know are afforded that get zero pushback from the C-suites as far as donating their time to organizations and nonprofits. It's just a part of our culture.
It's awesome.
It's not a pushback item.
It's
It's really,
fantastic, right? Well,
and
and
I'd
you do
never
a lot of
noticed.
charitable things. It's awesome. I mean, I think it's an expectation if you're going to be a leader in this industry in Phoenix, Arizona. Real estate, I think we have a lot of great people giving their time, and we all have different passions, but it seems pretty well dispersed. And
Hmm.
and it's awesome. I think a lot of what's cool is a lot of the events that get the real estate industry together, they're serving as a networking opportunity, but they're also, a lot of them are charitable events. The things you do for Luke, for instance, for the Air Force Base, that's a lot of real estate folks involved in that. It's awesome. It's a public, kind of private partnership sort of deal, to raise money for something that's really good and necessary.
Hmm.
Um, and we can have fun and see friends out there too, because a lot of them we're working alongside of, usually on these, Zoom calls and Teams, or, but we get to go out and see them outside of the office, and there's a dual benefit, right?
Hmm. And
So
you forget what everybody does for a living. You just know that you're
right,
next to the guy flipping the burgers and you got to get the
right.
mayo and
Yeah,
mustard on there faster.
but what's great, I think, is it's in their sphere, right? So I was doing a ULI, it was for local product councils, was like an open kind of recruiting thing a couple weeks ago. And I was over at the Clayton offices and talking with, 50 or 60 folks about why they should consider a local product council, and specifically, the card council, just because that's the one I'm on. But you know, what these events, they do serve as kind of updating your knowledge of what's going on in the industry. But the more that you're able to get out and go to these sorts of things, whether it's a quarterly or a semi-annual, type reoccurring event. Um, it's kind of a fraternity-like
Uh-huh.
atmosphere. The reality is, when you see these people, whether it's at a charity event, or just an informational event or something of that nature, on a regular basis outside of the office and outside of just doing business together, when you need someone that is in their sphere of, when you need someone that is in, a particular area of expertise that they have, that's who you think of.
Hmm.
So, what I would say to younger people kind of getting into the business, um, you've got to belong to these organizations. You've
Hmm.
got to get involved in the community. Um, it serves a purpose in helping the community. It serves a purpose in, furthering our industry and getting a knowledge, but it also helps you establish the group of people that you're going to trust and think of and utilize, and they're going to do the same thing, and they're going to come to you and use you, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's the cool thing about it, and it just kind of becomes a natural thing, and you don't think of it as work, right? It's not work. It's something you just do, right?
Hmm. And what I love about what you're saying is the way it's manifested for me is those people and I become humans before they become an ask.
Oh yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? I know the human and I'm
That's the
going,
way it
oh,
should
they
be.
do that. Exactly. And
Yeah, it's
that's,
the way
but
it
it
should be.
creates that environment where it can manifest. It's not just sitting
Right.
over a steak dinner and
Yeah.
trying to like force
Yeah, it's not
something.
just business development,
Hmm.
that's the interesting thing about, of course you can go to a large national conference and you can meet some new people and exchange business cards. Um, you're gonna be selling. I mean, that's what that is,
Hmm.
selling versus establishing a
Developing. Uh-huh.
relationship with someone, and having the business side of it kind of become secondary. um, it's a lot more rewarding. It's a lot easier, and you're gonna make a lifelong both business and relationship and a friendship. So it's pretty.
Hmm. Agreed. So if there's, I'm going to come back to Jim. If they're beyond when you were starving to get to death and living on PB&J somewhere in the forest,
All right.
what's been another something that you can think back on when something happened and you either pivoted on a dime or you used something that you learned maybe in that period of time that completely changed your trajectory?
Well, if I think of milestones in my lifetime, I had a very tumultuous childhood. One of my top five memories in my life, that has helped me remember that I need to fight for what I want, and do better, is when I was 10 years old, standing in a, a government cheese line, and
Hmm.
in the cold in Erie, Pennsylvania, and getting up there and getting a block of cheese, for my family and a box of powdered milk. And a lot of people don't they don't even know what a government cheese line is, let alone understand what I'm talking about. It is even at 10 years old, I couldn't think of it as in terms of humbling experience, but that's what it is. It's it is what it is.
Hmm.
You have to experience to know that, right? What I'll say is, so I grew up very, very poor, um, but I grew up with a tremendous amount of love, and I also grew up, knowing that I had to fight for what I wanted. I saw my mom work really, really hard as a single parent, and um, she loved her children with everything she had. Extremely emotional person. So that's kind of a milestone, in my life that I'll always remember. I'll remember my kids being born, and my getting married to my wife, who's amazingly stuck it out with me for 25 years. Um, I'll remember the Great Recession and fighting through that. I'll remember my mom's death, which happened in February 2020. Fortunately, she missed COVID, um, but passed of cancer. Um, those things shape you. And I think the two big takeaways for me, are you have to work hard, for what you want. It's okay if you don't want to be rich, that's not, it's just money. But if you want something, you have to work for it. Unless you're extremely lucky and it's just handed to you, which is, very small percentage of the population. So you have to work hard for what you want, and you have to show compassion and love to other people. And, if you have those two things, this goes back to, and I think I told you this maybe over a drink or something, kind of jokingly, but I really want to do it and I need to do it. But to me, that embodies the book I want to write, and I need to write, which is that I only have the title.
That's a strong start.
But the title is Just Give a Shit. And
Ah.
and that really is the key to success. You just give a shit for people, give a shit about what you're doing, work hard, and it will happen. Everything else that you want to happen, if you do those things, you will have everything you ever wanted. That's the reward. Period. That's it.
So what would you tell somebody that's in the thick of it? Because I think a lot of our workplace environment is shifting. Pressures are being felt. Harder decisions are upon us. We're kind of in it now. And a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff that, the COVID bone that everybody was eating on is kind of dwindling, and you can just feel the compression. What would you
Right.
tell somebody that was in a fight or flight situation? Like, let's say they're in a workplace and that pressure is on their shoulders right now. Do you stick it out? Is that what hard work looks like? Is it pick your shit up and go, or how do you know the difference? Like, what would you tell somebody that's feeling it right now?
Well, I think the first thing is, you have to identify what makes you happy.
Mhm.
So you can't work in a situation where you're unhappy for a long period of time, right? So, do you like where you're at, right? And if you don't, then you need to change that. You need to figure out a way to change it. And the start of it, you can feel the pressure and you can feel like there's nothing, but you've got to start somewhere, right? Sometimes it's so overwhelming that it's so hard to figure out, like, what is where do I start? I mean, they're just like, do I start going to events? Do I call Stephanie? Do I call Jim? Do I call John Graham? Do I,
Mhm.
uh, you know, uh, take somebody to coffee? Do I get up at 5 in the morning? Do I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night? Do I spend more time away from my family or with my family? Um, it's very, very hard sometimes to get started just because there are so many options. But you have to get started. And so, I don't think there's any one answer, but what I would say is, um, you know, call somebody you really trust or reach out to
Mhm.
somebody on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn's free, right?
Mhm.
LinkedIn is today we have something we didn't have 20 years ago,
Mhm.
5 years ago. What's really cool is, you can just go on and try and connect with somebody, and you can send them a message, even if you don't know them, right? They're going to get it, because everybody
Mhm.
in business is using LinkedIn, a lot of people in real estate particularly. Um, but you've got to get started. So you've got to do something. And unfortunately, fear makes people kind of curl up and go to inaction. And it's exactly the wrong thing to
Opposite.
do.
Mhm.
It's the exact opposite, is to think that your challenge is going to go away magically in the next 2 weeks. So
Just do something.
today's a day to start. Don't wallow in your shit. Get out, reach out to someone, go to something, put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and work through it, because
Mhm.
your problems are not going to be solved by somebody else. I promise you, your problems, even if you reach out to Jim Belfiore and you think this guy knows what he's talking about, and largely I don't, I try to help people, but I'm thinking through, brainstorming, right? But what you need to do is you need to figure it out and get something started, because if you don't, your problem is probably going to get worse with more time. The challenge will get worse. You're going to be closer to the doomsday that you're worried about 2 weeks from now than you are today. So get it working today. Let's get moving. Let's work through it. You've got to get stuff started.
Jim's here to smack you on the ass. Get out the door. In a coaching style. Let me be very clear. Coaching.
Apparently that's okay today. Last year it wasn't. At least for the next few years, it's okay. I
That
guess.
is a football reference for the
Right.
record.
Yeah.
I'm going
Okay. Yeah.
football with
Okay.
that one.
Yeah. That's a
I
joke.
have boys that play
Joking.
football.
Joking. Exactly.
Oh, Jim, that is such a beautiful story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you and your friendship, Stephanie, and um, look at you. I mean, you've changed careers, and
Hmm.
what, 4 or 5 years ago, very few people in real estate knew you. A lot of people in healthcare because of what you had done previously,
Hmm.
and now everyone in real estate, a lot of folks in real estate here in Phoenix, Arizona, know you, and you've made inroads and kind of helped build Fatco back up. And so I think it's fantastic. You're
Thank
you're
you, Jim.
you're you're doing some great things.
It's been open arms. Everyone has, if you, to your point, if you just put yourself out there and knock on that door or ask for that introduction, it has
Yeah.
been incredibly friendly.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
maybe because it's been slow and hard, I don't know, but I feel so blessed at how open armed
yeah.
this whole
Well,
industry has been.
and you have to make yourself vulnerable, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I've never been one of these guys that believes in the machoism type thing.
Hmm.
I think when things are bad, and sometimes you have to go make yourself vulnerable to other people and trust that um, they're not going to take advantage of that. But rather, I really honestly, I think most people really appreciate that, and that's kind of how you establish deep bonds with people.
Hmm.
Sometimes if you're struggling, whether it's personally or professionally, you have to show some vulnerability and show that you're going to fight and get back up on that horse
Yeah.
and, hey, how can you help me? And then there'll be a time when kind of things boomerang back around and it's your turn to help them, that other person that you went to when they're vulnerable.
Hmm.
Rely upon each other.
Well, the
So,
trust is established, to your point.
yeah,
It's you're a human first, then the trust, then the work. And
yeah.
that's the ideal path. So on a high note, I know like we have an economic summit in 48 hours, and I feel so bad for our economist. I'm like, did you even write your presentation, or are you gonna wait till the morning? Like, it's
Right,
such a
yeah, because
weird,
it'll change overnight.
right? Like this poor guy, he's like not set up for success to be on a
Right.
podium. But
Yeah.
ultimately, what it be, despite kind of this weird, I feel like we're standing on a powder keg of just like rumbling, like it's gonna be
Yeah.
fine, but it's just rumbly. What makes you excited for the very near future?
Well, I think we have to try and wake up and feel optimistic every day. Otherwise, we wouldn't get out of bed, right?
Sure.
I think it makes it kind of difficult. But I'm excited about the direction of real estate in Phoenix, Arizona. We're coming out of that kind of really hard freeze in the multifamily sector. The office sector is showing some signs
Hmm.
of rebound, post-COVID. Vacancies have been very, very high. The industrial market in the state of Arizona remains relatively healthy, one of the healthier markets. Net absorption over the last couple of quarters. Single family is a tough gig today, unless you're a publicly traded builder. Even for them, D.R. Horton had some bad results they just shared. Um, but I think there's a lot of pent up demand. So there will be demand for housing. It's just, the mortgage markets are kind of rough right now. So the one thing that we can always count on is that change is inevitable.
Hmm.
Um, some things seem to be changing pretty rapidly right now, but you never know how it's going to shake out. Um, it keeps us on our tiptoes and interesting. It keeps things interesting for us on a daily basis. And so I think you just got to wake up, look at things kind of, with an optimistic view and say, how does this affect me? How does it affect my company? How does it affect my family? And what can I do to make it better?
Hmm.
So um, I'm optimistic about everything. Everything looks good except for the heat. The heat, it's going to be hot in the next few months,
I
right?
know
It's
we skipped
hot.
winter. It never
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, but that's, get out of town, go camping. That's
Go
what I say.
camping.
Go camping.
Oh, and now we can't because we want to, because we worked our asses
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah. Just make sure you have a nice, if you're camping in a tent, make sure you have an air mattress.
Just you, one kid
That's what
loves
I
you.
suggest. Yeah. We started with a pop-up. The first time we camped, I'll finish with this. The first time we camped, my kids were 2 and 4.
No.
We're at Big Lake, which is in the White Mountains.
Mhm.
And we went up for like a 3 or 4 day camping trip. And we were in a big family-sized tent. And my daughter, it rained all 4 days. My daughter, we
A
couldn't,
muddy mess.
like, it was like a mess. It was like just a mess. My daughter at the age of 4 learned how to play Monopoly. We ate a lot of cold hot dogs.
Oh yeah, I can't make a fire.
And I can tell you the next camping trip we didn't have a lot of money because it was a downturn. It's just it's kind of on that cusp. We bought an inexpensive pop-up trailer. And
Big
from
upgrade from the ground.
from that moment on, we didn't have, cold ground. We had a little bit more space. It was a little more comfortable, and had a heater, so that was great. And so, if you go camping and it's rough the first time, aspire to the tent trailer, and eventually you get to a fifth wheel.
It just
If
takes
things
time.
go well, and that's kind of where we are.
And pretty soon you get running water in a flushing toilet
Yes,
if you
yes,
play your cards right.
yes, yes.
We
And you
set
can
our goals.
travel with the climate. So you're not traveling when it's raining, you're traveling when it's, hot here and it's not perfect elsewhere. So anyway,
I love it, Jim. Thank you for sharing.
thank you. Well, it was great chatting with you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Jim. You too.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope the conversation was inspiring for you. I hope you got a few laughs out of it and learned a thing or two. Please subscribe, and love you. See you next time. Navigating the streets, y'all. I'm a mom.